Good morning. Hello.
Morning.
Yeah, welcome to another weekly or monthly social media roundup with your favorite social media double act, Luann and myself. So thank you for joining us again, Luann. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Ready for a bank holiday weekend?
Yes, with some weather at last.
Yes.
Very, very exciting. And thank you everyone for joining. Once again, we've got so many hundreds of people joining these sessions as well. So let's do the same as usual. Light up the chat. Everyone connect, say good morning, where you're kind of, I'll say dialing in from. Sounds very dated, but you get the idea. And also, don't forget to share your social handles as well, because every month in these, we see people asking questions and the kind of community answering as well. So we're basically a community of social media, like enthusiast nerds or whatever you want to call us. We all have shared interests on this call, so we can all kind of benefit each other, which is all good. So thank you very much for joining. We'll be running a bit of a Q&A at the end, as per usual. Yeah. But the flow of this is, as it always is, which is we're going to talk about three things. We're going to look at some data points that have been captured throughout the course of May. There's some really interesting data that I'm looking forward to sharing with you and having a bit of discussion with Luann about it. We'll be looking at some trends, some really interesting trends have emerged. And also then we're going like network by network, looking at all of the updates. Without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So hopefully in a moment, you should get this.
Oh, someone's on a train watching it. That's really exciting. We've got trains, we've got Gloucestershire, we've got Cambridge, we've got Bulgaria, we've got Jersey. So yeah, we've got lots of people on this session today. This is great.
Absolutely love it. No, it's brilliant. Thank you so much for joining. So Luann, do you want to just give a quick intro to who you are? Lots of people probably know already, but it's always good for the newbies.
Yeah, so my name is Luann Wise. I'm a marketing consultant. I am based in Gloucestershire, so hello to people from the local area. I train, I teach, I work directly with LinkedIn. I'm one of their course instructors. I'm a lead trainer for Facebook and Instagram. I've been using for social media for a very long time, but my background is working in agencies, working client side and running my own business, working mainly B2B, I guess. I'm currently working with law firms, manufacturers, other professional services and higher education. So I have a really nice mix of being hands-on doing this stuff as well as teaching and training as well.
Awesome. Love it. It's an absolute privilege to have you as part of it. So and I'm Andy. I'm one of the founding team of ContentCal, content marketing tool, as you probably guessed by the title. And yeah, we spend our lives studying social media trends and what's happening, because ultimately it's our business and our job to do so. So everything we find out, I basically collate and want to share with everyone else. So let's dive into it, shall we? So hierarchy session, a quick time check, and let's make sure we run on time. Be very mindful of everyone's time today.
Yeah.
Data points. First things first, most downloaded apps for the last month. This is across all app stores. So you can look at the iOS apps and Google Play. What you'll notice is that TikTok is pretty much dominating still. This is a good predictor of future growth. So TikTok, unsurprisingly, well up there. Interestingly, that Facebook still doesn't diminish from being absolutely at the top, even though we talk sometimes about Facebook plateauing or maybe people closing their Facebook accounts. Doesn't seem to be actually happening in reality. But fundamentally, this gives you a bit of predictor of the things that are going to be growing and the usage that's going to be growing on each of these platforms. But probably more interestingly, though, I want to dive straight into some organic and paid social benchmarks. There was a really interesting study that was released just a couple of weeks ago by a software company called Social Bakers. So what they produced and what they've researched, they've gone into the top 50 brands on Facebook and Instagram. By top 50, they mean the amount of followers. So big brands that have garnered good followings, and they've looked at their organic and paid social benchmarks. Now, some of the things I'm going to show you here might be a little bit contradictory to typical beliefs or maybe how you've run your strategies. A quick point of note here is that in the world of social media content marketing, there are no facts. The idea of these sessions is to kind of give you some perspectives and some different viewpoints on data. If your own data is telling you something different, what I'll show you here doesn't mean you should go and completely pivot away from what you know is working. So basically use this to give you some extra perspective, or if you don't have any data to back it up, to help inform your decisions. Is that fair, Luann, or do you add anything to that?
No, I completely agree with that. You know, it's wonderful that we have so much data, but there is so many data and research reports out there. It's always useful if you're trying to pitch, do a presentation, trying to give validation to what you're recommending. But for me, the answers are all your own answers are in your own data. So yeah, use these as guidelines and starting points, but look at your own data to get what you really need out of it.
Beautiful. Totally agree with that. So let's look at Facebook and Instagram organic interactions by post type. Now, lots of people are going to be looking at this very intently, right? So I actually posted this on LinkedIn earlier this week. What is complete surprise to me, live video delivers more than 3 times the amount of interactions, i.e. engagement, like shares and comments, than normal video posts. Facebook Live is something I barely consider, but according to the top 50 brands on Facebook, that has been the primary source of engagement driving. Now, Facebook Live is going to be a very interesting thing that we're going to talk about later on, because it's about to have a bit of a new dawn considering what Facebook are planning with it. So we're going to cover that in a sec. But underneath that, what you'll see is very little deviance between link, image, status, so text only, and video posts. They're all pretty much the same. Naturally, links are a bit lower. But video, and this is a really important thing, because there'll be a lot of people that will say, you know, you need to do video, or social's all about video. The core social platforms, when I say the core, I mean the typical 4 that we'll all use, Facebook, Twitter, Insta, LinkedIn, they are not native video platforms. So it's not a huge surprise that typical video posts don't outperform other post formats. Because typically people are coming to those core 4 platforms to scroll, to just literally go through their feed, not necessarily watch video. Video is a huge driver, of course, on native video platforms, TikTok, YouTube. But what we're seeing, and I've seen this backed up in other data, is that video doesn't drive significant growth. So don't need to put yourself under loads of pressure to create video content. That would be my takeaway from the Facebook organic data point. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Luann?
I think there's a few things we could think about here. So I love the fact that we have differentiated between live video and video. What I would also like to see, because I like to see the breakdowns, is actually my experience is that when you do something live on a social media platform, you have a smaller number actually watch it live with you, but then almost within the next hour or 2 hours, you get a significant jump. So I'm guessing that a lot of those interactions won't necessarily be the duration of while you're live, but they just love seeing people and watching people, and it's really interactive. So I think that's why you've got such high stats on live, because, you know, there's movement and energy to it, hopefully.
Definitely.
You've probably got some generation breakdowns in here as well. We know from previous stats that younger age groups like video and live video perhaps more than some older age groups. But I think what it's really showing is that you need a mix. You can't just do one thing on social media. You've got to mix it up. You've got to try and test. And I would say always start with what is the content idea, and then what's the best format for producing it, rather than I need to do lives, I need to do this, I need to do this. No, think about your concept and then the best way of doing it for your audience and how you're going to get the interactions.
Preach. There you go. That is it. Idea first, distribution, and the execution later. Always idea led. Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agree with that. Instagram organic, I mean, you can read that for yourself. So I think most of people would see this already. Carousels, really top performing post format. We've seen that replicated in other data. And once again, like typical video posts across these top 50 brands anyway, haven't driven the most engagement and actually drive less than image only. Now let's talk about post length, which is another interesting one. So a bit of an inverted bell curve. This is just on Instagram. Whereas typically on the left-hand side, you'll see the predominance of interaction around shorter posts. But interestingly, you see this is a number of words, bear in mind when you're seeing that number in that chart on the right-hand side. So as that kind of dips down, as the number of words increases, an interesting thing happens that the longer it gets, actually engagement starts to peak again. So whilst the guidance here is brevity still reigns supreme, absolutely. But if there is a really, engaging bit of detail you want to add to it, don't be afraid to do so. So if something requires good explanation, a good bit of narrative on it, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's just good guidance to think if you can, focus on brevity, then do. That would be my takeaway from this. Any other insight on this one, Luann?
There's some really interesting things around here around posts and how you do them. Of some people space them out quite a lot. Some people like that style, some people don't. My argument on how long should a post be is as long as it needs to be. You know, as long as it needs to be. And if you start straying into another topic, turn it into another post. I think there's something interesting about to happen in that LinkedIn, I'm seeing news of changing the length of their post character limit from 1,300 characters to 3,000.
Wow.
Is about to roll out, which is huge. And I'm not sure that even 1,300 is a lot if you go to that 3,000, whether it's because it's replacing articles or a different type of format. But I think 3,000 characters on a LinkedIn post, please don't everyone dive into doing that. Write for you know, for your idea, what you need to get it across, and think about, you know, people's reading habits and what they need to do. I think shorter is better because we're scrolling so quickly. We're not reading books on social media. Agreed.
So the final one, hashtags. Now this will be this will be quite counter to a lot of people I talk to around, certainly around Instagram, and this is what it's all about, right? This data is all about Instagram. We'll go, all right, should I have hashtags in the body? Should I put it in the first comment? There's some people that are incredibly passionate about that. Or should I use 25 or use 15? Fact is, none of that matters. The reality is, and the harsh reality is that actually the top performing posts across these 50 brands don't have any hashtags. The brand is the thing that carries it through. So, but using hashtags wisely does make sense. So 1 or 2 hashtags make sense. There is no evidence to support jamming 25 plus hashtags into a post sees significant engagement increases. In fact, the data supports actually less so. So I think this is kind of good, kind of refreshing stuff, because I think sometimes, Luann, you and I were talking about this before, we went like that. We often in social media fixate on the minor things, which is the minor detail stuff, which is like, how many hashtags should I put in? Where should I feature them? The fact is, like you said, Luann, driven by the idea and the creative is the thing that will drive engagement, as this kind of data proves, and it certainly backs up our own beliefs, that's for sure.
Yeah, what we were talking about was just trying to game social media and looking for hacks. It's overthinking it. I think if you focus on your audience, as we've said before, and keep things relevant, that's what's going to bring you success. And one of the key points when I was looking at this stat was related to the maturity of the account as well. So I think if you're just starting off on Instagram, trying to build your audience, you may want to go for more hashtags because you're trying to test things and settle down. I've been to big talks by New York Times and National Geographic, and they will only use 3 or 5 because they don't need to. Their content speaks for themselves. They've got the followers and the audience anyway. So it's almost, there's a maturity thing in here, depending on, go back to your strategy and the objectives and what you're trying to achieve. That will dictate your content and the nuances and all these little bits and pieces that you do around it. But don't lose sleep over hashtags.
Yeah, agreed with that. Yeah, really, really smart.
Yeah.
LinkedIn stories. So this is, sorry for the wordy slide. I basically just nicked this off a friend of mine and someone that's worthwhile anyone following on LinkedIn, a guy called John Esperian. He's probably one of the few people that can out nerd me with social media data. He's got a good following on LinkedIn as well. So he's got a really good kind of testing ground for LinkedIn. He's got 34,000 followers on his personal and 1,000 on his company page. And he's been testing stories for the last month, basically to answer the question, are they worth the effort? Too long, didn't read. The answer is no, they are not. Based on the engagement, there's a huge load of reasons why. Discoverability, the fact that they only really work on mobile, you can't get them on desktop, which is where 70% of LinkedIn's usage is. That will be a huge factor in it. But fundamentally, we don't need to put ourselves under pressure with that, because they only saw an initial spike initially because, geeky marketers like Luann and myself spend time like, oh, let's start doing stories. The reality is normal people aren't doing them. So that's our takeaway from that one.
Yeah, I love his testing. Obviously, it is about testing, and he's testing with his audience, which is in a specific niche. My take on stories is, it's good that they're there. If I wasn't working from home and not moving from this chair, I might use them more because I'd be out, I'd be at events, I'd be able to film things or take photos. And I think that they have been somewhat limited by the circumstances we've been in for the last 12 months. I'm very rarely picking up my phone specifically for social media because I can do everything on the desktop. And I think that's the downside of stories, that it's mobile only and we're not going out at the moment.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. So let's talk about paid. We don't often talk about paid here, so let's fire through some of this because we want to get into the features. Actually, conscious of time. So, social media ads. What's the latest? A big agency group called Group M, part of the WPP network, the biggest agency network, saw ads grow 7% in 2020, as only a few people were still advertising, but then projecting 22% growth in 2021. So, we're expecting big growth of ads. 87% of that growth, which is kind of sickening to see, is going to be driven by Facebook and Google. Yeah, the duopoly is a big problem, but it is what it is. But that has absolutely played out. So back into this Social Bakers report. So there's actually been 60% year-on-year growth of paid social ad spend, utterly significant, mostly driven by North America and Western Europe. Really significant. But the challenge is that the costs per clicks and conversion costs have increased as a result, right? So that's going to be as a result of two things. One, increased competition, because the world's opened up. Everyone's thinking, right, well, let's chuck a load of money into digital, which is encouraging because it means that more and more of that advertising share of wallet is going away from TV or traditional media into digital media, which is great for all of us that work in the digital media space, for sure. So that's a really encouraging thing, especially if you're managing ads for clients, of course. Good news. But then when you're looking at this, however, the thing that's going to kind of put a ceiling on this is that the costs, because there's a whole flood of new people advertising, the costs go up in comparison to that, which is an unfortunate side effect of it. But also the other unfortunate side effect is of the iOS 14.5 update, right? So the fact that so many people have elected not to track. The latest data I've seen is only 3% of people on Facebook are opting in for the app to track them, which now means Facebook are guessing who it with your ads, which naturally is going to increase costs in line with it. So that's definitely something to be mindful of. So a bit of a story of two halves. I won't talk too much about this because it is what it is. Ultimately, this is the ad spend by industry across the different quarters and who's increasing the most. E-commerce, unsurprisingly, is leading. And you can see like the auto industry are advertising incredibly heavily, as well as the fashion space as well. So if you have clients in any of these, or if you operate in any of these, it's kind of a good reference point. Might want to take a screenshot of this, but I don't think it needs much more narrative. Other two bits of data, we saw some kind of quarterly reports, both from Facebook and Twitter, where they both reported like record revenues. Things are looking rather rosy, as you might expect for them. But we often look at like Facebook plateauing, but their users are up 10% year on year. They've kind of plateaued in their domestic market of US, where I'm hovering my mouse here, but you can still see like good growth, mostly being driven by Asia Pacific region. And then Twitter, which had been in the doldrums for a little while, up 28% year on year as well. That's daily active users. They're now nearly at 200 million daily active users. We usually talk in monthly active users. So that's a significant amount of people logging in every single day. I don't need to tell you that. So final thing, just going to look at the trends before I hand back over to you to start running the network, Suan.
Yeah.
This is interesting, right? And I'm not a big fan personally of like generational kind of generalizations in that way. But Gen Zers, obviously, this is the future of our economy. These people that are coming through now, using technology now, will dictate the future direction of our businesses and softwares and how we market our products. And this is really interesting, charting the growth curve of the most popular 3 platforms of Gen Zers, where we can see Instagram has now been overtaken by TikTok. As you can see, TikTok is that gray line. So in 2021, TikTok has just overtaken Instagram in terms of being the predominant tool that Gen Zers use, but it's still behind Snapchat. We don't talk about Snapchat that much because it's not much in the media anymore because there's anything newsworthy to cover because it's just going really well for them. They're still like leading the charge when it comes to this demographic. And when you see like TikTok and Snapchat and what we'll be talking about later in terms of their new updates, you can really start to predict like the future of e-commerce is very much going to be driven by these social platforms. It's going to be very interesting to see how this evolves over time. So we'll talk more about that in a second, but I'm going to take a breath. You can get a break from there. Over to you, Luann.
Okay, so let's start with the platforms. There is updates for every platform. So we'll start with Facebook. And we've already mentioned this impact of iOS 14.5 on advertisers and needing to opt in. Whether you've seen that or not, it is having an impact on advertisers. So something to be very aware of. The next one, I'm a big fan of this one, and I know that Twitter introduced it a while ago, and it's always been part of my social media do's and don'ts, is to read things before you share them. And that Facebook now actually encourages you to do that and prompts you to say, have you done this before you sharing it? I think it's a good thing, a nice, simple update. The next one is, we've talked in these sessions, and the stats showed it, if you're able to see the stats, e-commerce, the importance of e-commerce and social media and how they're working together. Facebook are launching live stream e-commerce. I think they're doing this on Fridays, starting soon with some big brands through to July. A bit of a kind of a QVC shopping channel, I think. But I think, you know, it just shows the importance of e-commerce on these platforms and driving people to websites and shopping. So I think this is certainly something to watch if you are in that space as well.
And based on that kind of growth of live streaming that we saw earlier, like Facebook Live, and I think this is going to be a big driver of Facebook Live moving forward. Yeah, I'll be tuning into a few of those in June and July, actually. It's going to be interesting to watch.
See if it encourages us to part with our money as well, how well it works.
Indeed.
So let's move on to Instagram. This is an interesting one. So these platforms seem to really be focusing on the term creators at the moment. And when they launch updates and they talk about updates, they are using this term, this is for the creators, this is to support the creators, which I think is a nice term for us to use. And Instagram launching updates, a marketplace to match brands with creators. I think that's going to be one to watch, particularly around e-commerce as well. The shops allowing creators to sell goods via their profiles. That's a development. And this affiliate marketplace as well, allowing creators to get a cut of the sales they generate through their posts. So with the e-commerce areas I work on, I'll certainly be keeping an eye on these and how they can integrate as well.
Yeah, I think for me, that's just really showing an increasing growth of this creator economy, and the fact that us as brands, the importance of us utilizing like user generated content, influencers, affiliates, ambassadors, whatever we want to call them, as part of our marketing strategy, because there's a huge amount of investment, and that's going to bring a huge amount of new creators that have built like trust within a community. And that represents an incredible opportunity for us as businesses to utilize those creators effectively, would be my take on it.
It feels like a professional recognition, doesn't it, of creators, that we've got this term now, rather than not knowing what to call them, that it does professionalize it a bit.
That's a good way of putting it, actually. I like that.
Other changes, we've mentioned some of these before. No surprises, I don't think, really, that Instagram Live is taking on Clubhouse. We're going to talk about Clubhouse later on, so I'll save the Clubhouse updates for you later, Andy. The next one is Stories. Small feature changes all the time that are happening. Auto captions are coming to Stories, so if you are doing those, that's certainly something to look at. Accessibility is something that I'm talking to quite a lot of clients about, in terms of making sure that you put, I know you've done a blog on it, I think, Andy, in the past few days, on alt text, on images, making sure that you've got captions if you've got videos. Thinking about accessibility issues hasn't been something we've mentioned before, but I think this is where these features are all coming from, and something to consider in what you're doing as well.
Definitely agree with that.
And the last one on Instagram for today is scheduling lives. This is really interesting. I'm working on a LinkedIn Live in about an hour, and it's really challenging with lives to let people. It's not like registering for the webinar today and then the software allows you to kind of go 1 day to go, 1 hour to go, starting now. Lives, you can tell people they're happening, and you kind of have to rely on people remembering to go and watch it at the time. So any little features that allow us on these platforms to say a live is happening and to come back, and notifications, I think is really going to increase people using these features and understanding them as well. LinkedIn has been really quiet on updates over the past few weeks, and we've got one in here around employee advocacy. And for me, this is what LinkedIn is all about, and this is the balance between your company page and your personal profile. Your company page is a bit of a content hub. It is your employees that are your best advocates for your business. When they share content, it's liked, trusted, shared. A lot more people have that recognition about content coming from an individual versus a brand. So I love that they have added this into company page analytics as well, because I find when I'm working with organizations that we have to get this message across about the importance of personal profiles and how it can't all be left to the marketing team, and we need to get you on board. And the more analytics a marketer has got to support that and measure it and maybe even gamify it to encourage people to get involved, I think the better. So we've only got this one update in the deck today, and it's not on the LinkedIn blogs yet, but I have seen some news over the last 24 hours around other features coming to LinkedIn around being able to boost organic posts, rather than setting up big ads, event promotions, some new features, and as I've already said, longer posts. So typical, don't see anything for a while, and then I think in the next few days we're going to have quite a few LinkedIn updates coming through. So keep an eye on those.
Yeah, I'm definitely very interested about organic post boosting. We'll definitely be testing that one out, actually. So I was pleased to see that.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably just, a way to make the platform more accessible. Facebook did it. That's how they started. So, we see these features moving between the platforms, don't we?
We do. Right. Here's the big one.
Here's the big one. And again, interestingly, because probably, 12 months ago, we would have shared very little about Twitter, very few updates, and now they are rolling out amends and testing and new features week by week. So I'm not quite sure where these are coming from, but I think from what I read is that the big theme behind this is monetizing the platform, which they haven't done as much as the other platforms have done. We don't see as much monetization opportunities on here, but they are coming. But first, a couple of features, and I'm really pleased about this one, that they will no longer crop images on your timeline. We know that creating images and different image sizes by platform can be a bit of a chore and a barrier, and things get cut off. So this is a nice, simple, but welcome change for us, I think. Rolling out reply prompts, again, similar to that Facebook one around have you read it, that Twitter had used last year, just little prompts all the time to encourage you to double check things before you tweet. There is no edit button. They will not bring us an edit button. So all of these prompts before we press that button, I think is a good thing. Twitter Spaces. So we've heard a lot about Twitter Spaces since the beginning of this year, really, since we saw the dramatic growth of Clubhouse and audio, and obviously the other platforms then trying to get on board and move this. And it seems like Twitter are doing this quite successfully and at quite a pace as well, launching this onto their platform. It's the circles along the top. I'm personally not playing with audio right now. I'm listening to a few things, but I've not got into that space yet because it's a whole nother thing to do. So I'm a watcher and a lurker on this new feature. The important thing is that it is coming to Android. Clubhouse have just rolled it out to Android, but Twitter got there first, and I think that's quite a big, significant move for them in getting ahead in this audio space. And they've also improved discoverability as well, so they're making it a lot easier for people to get involved in it, which is the key, isn't it? The easier they can make it for us, the quicker we'll try these things out as well. And this is the monetization one on the next slide, is about adding a ticketed option. So, we've been in this world of online events for a long time. Hopefully some face-to-face are coming back, but I don't think they'll be purely face-to-face. I think they'll be hybrid. So as much as these social media platforms can give us options to get involved, ticketed, scheduling, I think this is a really interesting one to watch if you are involved in events, like to attend events as well. Another Twitter Spaces one, scheduling and reminders. As we've said, that's really key. We live our, as social media people, we live our lives, don't we, on schedules, reminders, notifications, alarms, triggers. That's how we operate. So we're used to this, and anything they can do to nudge us along, I think, is a good thing. Newsletters. We talked about these probably not last month, the month before, about the importance of newsletters and how these features are coming to the platforms, how they're rolling it out, how they're They're buying, this is another acquisition for Twitter around buying the subscription platform Scroll. So we're seeing newsletter features coming, but also these subscriptions options as well, which changes the game. I think we've talked about on social media. I'm probably reluctant to move my newsletter to a social media platform when I have data. I have an email list. I do an email newsletter. I'm not sure yet how much data and information the social media platforms are going to give you around newsletters.
No, but I think from my perspective, yeah, your own owned newsletter still remains the primary resource, but these give a great opportunity for you to kind of take that, core of your following that I spoke about before, whereas you might have 1,000 followers, but most of those are quite casual. You'll have like an inner sanctum of the people that really care, and it's being able to kind of opt them into a weekly or daily update or whatever, and start building deeper, more meaningful relationships. So the smaller community thing is definitely the bit I'm mostly excited about with these kind of newsletter stuff. Yeah. Oh, yes. Next one.
The tip jar. We talked about, I think this was last month, but it is now rolling out. This is the opportunity to tip people on Twitter. And I've seen a few notifications around this now. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out. This is people being able to give you a tip, or you leave tips for people for great advice. But I think the biggest area for this is probably non-profits and fundraising opportunities. I think it could be really nice opportunities for charities and not-profits to start using this as part of their activity, if it's a really easy one-click opportunity.
Definitely.
And then another subscription offering taking shape, Twitter Blue. Probably not an original name. Their subscription offering begins to take shape. So they are talking about how you can start subscribing and start monetizing different levels of users. So we need to see what that's going to look like. That's probably going to be our update next month, isn't it?
I expect so. Yeah, they've been threatening this for a while, actually. So yeah, $2.99 to get access to some certain features. So, YouTube were the first to start kind of monetizing their social platform at a kind of user level. This could be the future model of social, which is less reliant on ads and more reliant on us opting in for our personal social platform of choice. Maybe, same way that we maybe subscribe to Netflix over Amazon Prime. Who knows? But this could well pave a future path for where social media is going. So that will be very interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Over to you. I'm going to dive into the comments. I can see there's lots of questions in there. So some of you are answering each other, but we will come on to them, particularly the one around Instagram carousels. I've got an answer for that one, so I'll come on to that in a bit.
Nice. So let's go through a few of these ones quite quickly. So Luann's already covered the kind of main core that most people will be using. But yeah, Pinterest testing live streaming. This will fit very nicely with Pinterest model, mostly driven around e-commerce, B2C type of brands. Live streaming fits into that beautifully, especially with everything that's happening around Pinterest shops. This is testing at the moment. It's not available to everyone, but yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. And then this is a bit of a false launch because it's not really a launch of it. They've just renamed what they did call story pins. They've renamed it idea pins, which I think makes a lot more sense because Pinterest stories are not the same as any other stories because they're not ephemeral. They don't disappear after 24 hours. They stay forever. So they're actually more about garnering inspiration, really. So they've now called them idea pins. Now, so quite quiet in terms of Pinterest updates, but let's go on to YouTube. YouTube Shorts, I've been talking about it a lot because we've been seeing it roll out to a few creators in the US, then generally in the US, and now it's starting to show for UK users. So it's not here for everyone yet. But if short form video is your thing, or you want to start going towards short form video, like kind of TikTok orientated style, Shorts would be a really good platform to start thinking about now. Let's not forget that YouTube still have the biggest monthly active users out of any social media platform and the highest user retention rate. So YouTube's still one of my favorite platforms for driving growth. Shorts could be a really good opportunity to move YouTube away from like more long form, purposeful video content into something that is actually more snackable, more social media orientated. So going to be fascinated to see how that one comes out. But YouTube are putting a huge amount of emphasis and effort behind it by launching this $100 million creator fund. This kind of ties into what Luann, you were saying earlier about like, the professionalizing, I can't even say the word, but like making the creator thing a profession and really recognizing that as absolutely an industry. So this $100 million creator fund is absolutely for those creators that are going to be creating good quality shorts. So these platforms that are experiencing it know that the way that these platforms will grow and these new content formats will grow is by the quality of the content on the platform. This is why Clubhouse is in the situation that it finds itself in. It didn't invest early enough in the creators to produce really good quality content initially, and just left it up to the community to create content. And as a result, quality becomes questionable, trust in a platform diminishes as a result. So when you take this approach where you're like, we're going to take quality people, we're going to put our money where our mouth is, you create great quality content, which drives growth of a platform. So yeah, YouTube know how to do it right. Hence the reason I'm quite excited about Shorts and the growth therein. So on to Snapchat, launches a creator marketplace. Once again, the word creators, same thing as Instagram, basically making it ever easier for us as brands to start working with individuals that have a following, have a trust, have a community on a platform. And it's really, to be honest, this is one of my favorite strategies for going after a new platform and starting to create exposure on a new platform, rather than having to think about yourself having a completely different strategy for TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram. Working with creators provides you an opportunity to get in on a platform, get your brand recognized on a platform, but work with individuals that already have that trust in the community rather than starting from scratch. So it's always great for a fast start on a platform. So I don't see enough people considering that approach as a way to break into a new platform as much as I'd like to. Anyway, Snapchat growth. Snapchat now has 500 million monthly active users, which is a huge jump in growth. Snapchat is having a whale of a time at the moment. Basically, this is from Snapchat's quarterly report, because we've seen, like I showed earlier about Twitter and Facebook, there's been a few quarterly reports out. But the thing that they're stating is that we're building the e-commerce platform of the future, allowing people to virtually try on clothes, because e-commerce, Snapchat is a huge driver of e-commerce. And what we're going to see with Snapchat is actually for that generation that use it, Gen Z, as we were talking about, this becomes natural to the way that they find and discover things. Maybe they're scrolling Snapchat and find a creator that's wearing a watch that they like the look of. Then they can go and click on the product link to that watch directly in Snapchat. Then they can try it on with augmented reality, choose the right color, see how it looks on their wrist. And then they can just go ahead and buy that directly on Snapchat and then carry on scrolling. That is the e-commerce platform of the future that Snapchat and TikTok are fighting to try and build, because the prediction really is that Snapchat and TikTok will become the Amazon for this generation, because they'll just be discovering and doing all of their purchasing decisions through TikTok and Snapchat. That's a really interesting dynamic to how the shape and world of e-commerce will change. Other things like copy and outfit, screenshot allows people to take a photo or scan a photo and then be recommended those kind of products. Pinterest do a similar thing through the Pinterest lens as well. And then, as I've already mentioned, shopping in the app. But you can see all of this coming to reality, and Snapchat are absolutely leading the way when it comes to like the future of e-commerce. TikTok are actually behind on this. I'm going to talk more about TikTok now, just two more networks to cover now. So lead gen ads, so as that advertising model starts to mature, these lead gen ads are common to any other platforms, allowing people to add in their email address to get a download of something. So now that is live on TikTok. They've enabled a green screen layout as part of Duets. We covered Duets last time, but basically it's a really popular content format within TikTok. It's been copied on other platforms and called remixing. Basically, it's riffing or repurposing other people's content. And what this green screen allows you to do is kind of overlay yourself, doing a parody or whatever, or take on, whatever that initial content was, having that initial content play behind you. To be honest, it creates like a content pyramid of lots of people co-creating and helping things become viral, become a thing, because everyone can start, rather than just liking and sharing and interacting, they can become part of the content trend. And honestly, this is why TikTok are just so smart, because they just recognize what it takes for things to go viral and for people to interact. So people don't necessarily just want to interact by just liking. Some people want to interact by participating. And that's what Duets allows. So yeah, really good thing to understand that one. Then final thing around TikTok, moving to the next stage of e-commerce, as I said, they've had a bit of a partner-orientated strategy for now, where you can see here they've partnered with companies like Teespring to do like in-feed product tags, which will take you off to a kind of purchase page, but it does take you off TikTok. Same thing with a partnership with Shopify, being able to have shoppable links within your posts as well. So that's been their partner strategy, but now they're moving forward to this thing called promo tiles, which fully allows you to customize your content to really look much more like an ad, but to have this from an organic perspective. So that's really interesting, that TikTok are actually like unashamedly, trying to help people monetize their content without forcing people down the route of ads. So yeah, as I said, TikTok and Snapchat very much on the wall for the e-commerce for the Gen Z consumer. Final thing, onto Clubhouse. A bit of a negative statement to start with, really. Falling off a cliff, basically. They're $4 million valuation. I mean, to be honest, like contextually, it was downloaded only about 900,000 times in April. I mean, I would be very happy if our app was downloaded 900,000 times. But, for a business of this stage, carrying this valuation, you shouldn't see anything other than hyper growth. So, yeah, things don't look particularly rosy for Clubhouse. Maybe the Android app will save them. My own personal feeling is that it's too late. So I might well be wrong on that, but I've culled all of our investment in Clubhouse. But that's just a personal view on it. So we are there. 6 trends just to summarize before we head over to questions. And we actually ended at a reasonably good time. Yeah. Paid social, it is very much kind of boom season for paid social, continues to grow. Twitter Blue, will that be a new route forward in social for a social media platform that's no longer driven by ads, that potentially has smaller user numbers, but a more engaged, more active audience? Maybe this is my utopian thinking, but who knows? Maybe that paves a new way forward. Twitter and Facebook news subscriptions, I've already spoken about this, offering new opportunity for deeper engagement with a smaller community. Marketplaces and creator funds, just increases the reliance and the importance of brands, making sure they have a team of people that they can partner with, be it affiliates, be it ambassadors, be it influencers, whatever. People that they can rely on to help them support their social media strategy. It's going to become increasingly important. E-commerce, new dawn for live streaming. So look out for what Facebook are doing over the next couple of months, because you're going to see this boom. Just for reference, in China, the live stream e-commerce market is worth $180 billion. $180 billion, and it didn't exist 6 months ago. Utterly insane. Oh yeah, and I said, keep a very close eye on Snapchat, because what they do, other networks copy, and they are very much at the forefront of where kind of social media is going. And all of the other platforms are looking to them too. So with that, we are done. So let's go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing at this point.
Cool.
Questions?
So not questions, but well, there's a few in there. Firstly, Toby, thank you. Live video is more engaging and natural. We'll take that as a compliment today. But I agree with you. And I think from a creator's point of view as well, while it's more nerve-wracking, I personally prefer doing live, because I don't do that overthinking. We go live at 11 o'clock and we have to do it. When you pre-record, you think about it, you think that you can redo it, and you may watch it back and seek perfection. So I think there is this real difference between live and recorded video as well, which is obviously related in those stats earlier on. Someone asked about Reels data and why that it wasn't in those stats organically earlier on. My answer to that, Andy, would be that it's too early for Reels data and trends at the moment, but I do believe that they're launching Insights, or have just launched Insights.
So we're going to talk about more next month, actually, and that's actually a good point to say. Next month is going to be a bit of a special session. We're going to be talking about Reels engagement data, because that's actually going to go live. Next month's session coincides with National Social Media Day, funnily enough, on the 30th of June. And we're going to be doing a bit of a quiz as well, giving away some prizes. So it won't be too difficult, but it's a bit of a kind of social media quiz. So we're going to be doing our update with all the new stuff, which will include Reels analysis. I'm very excited to see some of that stuff. But yeah, little quiz, give away some Amazon vouchers, bit of fun. Why not? Anyway, look, we've all come out of lockdown pretty much now. How about another virtual quiz? Bit of a throwback. Why not?
Throwback, yes. Yeah, but some of the draft questions we've been working on aren't that easy, so we've got some time to refine it and work on those, but very excited about doing that. A couple of other questions. Someone has answered it, but Instagram carousel, yes, there's a bit of a bug at the moment. You may notice that it's not as easy. If you hold down the first image as you post it, you should then get the option to post multiple images. I've posted a link in the chat already, someone asking about like counts going on Instagram. Yes, they announced that yesterday after we'd written this slide deck. So there is now the option to hide your public like counts if you wish to. It's up to you. It's one of those privacy things. And then just a fun comment in here, and I thought we could comment on this, is some of you are asking if we know when things are rolling out. We don't get a heads up any more than you do. I guess we are just constantly stalking the news and the platforms and reading and seeing what's happening to share it with you. If we did have any heads up, then we'd probably be under an NDA. I am for one thing around sharing. So we are sharing with you what we know and see has been announced as rollouts. We very rarely talk about testing and not privy to a heads up on dates and timings either.
Yeah, and just one question I noticed here about from Afonso, which is TikTok going to change its paid ads module only targeting countries to target cities? Yeah, TikTok is still pretty immature as far as its advertising product goes. It's invested so heavily in its algorithms, which is why it's driven so well organically. You'll see over time, and I don't have a timeline of it, but it's a natural maturity curve, is that they'll be focusing much more heavily on their paid ads, and you'll see a lot more stuff coming to TikTok over time. But yeah, like any bit of tech, it's still evolving. Their investment, as it should have been, was all been in their organic content discovery. So yeah, it will in time. Any more questions at all? But thank you so much for everyone's lovely feedback.
Yeah, there's one about engagement rates going down, even though using all the features. It's hard to say, always hard to diagnose. I think this comes down to you testing things, understanding your audience, thinking about your calls to action, what changes are being made. So without kind of knowing and diving into lots of data and details, but the fact that you're noticing, I think, is the key point. So yeah, not a positive result, but the fact that you're looking at the data and trying to look for reasons, but just try and test things out.
Yeah, I agree. And if I'm not too sure if you tested this already, but I do like the idea of these collaborative Instagram lives now. Like we spoke about this earlier, like working with someone else so you can share an audience together as well. You've already mentioned you were doing takeovers, so I don't know if that provides any extra insight, but yeah, those kind of shared Instagram lives. So if like Luann and I, we could probably do this on Instagram Live, and both of our followers will get announcements, and we could extend our reach that way. But it's always very hard to diagnose, but yeah, there's hopefully lots of tricks and tools that we've given you today, and some new updates, which will hopefully help you drive some further engagement.
Oh, here we go. Any tips for increasing employee engagement with LinkedIn? Train them, teach them, tell them what needs to be done. I've successfully done this by gamifying it. You make your colleagues competitive and show them results and show them sharing, and they will get involved. So unfortunately, league tables, bars of chocolate, whatever you need to do to get them doing things.
Yeah, agreed with that. Definitely. There's some fantastic examples of this. So a chap called Jake Potter, who runs Colt's employee advocacy thing. He's a brilliant person to reach out to on LinkedIn. You can tell him I sent you. So they have a sales force of about 20,000 people, of which they've rolled out employee advocacy throughout them. And it's been Jake's full-time job to manage that through league tables, through tracking them, through constant nudging of good behaviors, promotion of people that have done it well, and go, look, Luann's been brilliant. So, it's in reinforcing that good behavior, constantly tracking what the employees have done to kind of nudge them in the right direction. With all of that, like I said, it's a full-time job pretty much if you want to get it done right. But like any behavior change, it's just about like constant reinforcement, because behavior change takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but the opportunities are there.
Someone said, does that work on trustees? Absolutely. And actually it needs to start at the top as well, with your board of trustees, your board of directors. Get them involved from the beginning, because actually that will really help you roll it out throughout the teams as well. So maybe a separate session with trustees because they're in a different role, but absolutely I've attended trustee meetings to get them on board, and they're really important advocates.
Definitely agree. So yeah, Toby, you asked a question about, will Twitter allow account tagging on images for scheduled posts at any time? Yes, they will. And to be honest, at Content Cal, we should have that live within the next few weeks anyway. So yeah, we're working on that one. So that's a good point. But otherwise, are we at the bottom of the questions?
We are. Yes, everyone, we should say this at the beginning. You will get a copy of the recording if you've registered.
Yeah, definitely. So, but otherwise, you're always welcome to get in touch with us anyway at any point. Yeah, I'm on andy@contentcal.co. So you can always get in touch, and I'm sure Luann was happy to hear from you as well. We're always happy to talk about this kind of stuff. And follow us on LinkedIn because we talk about this stuff all the time. And otherwise, see you next month
for a quiz.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone loves a quiz.
Yeah.
See you later, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.